Hey guys, I finished making my upper cabinet cases last week, and in this video I'll show you how I made the face frames. I started out by measuring my scrap boards and then drawing them into SketchUp. I then drew the pieces I would need and kept rearranging them until I was able to squeeze everything onto those 4 scrap boards. I am making these face frames out of 1x6 poplar, and I'll be cutting them down to 1 5/8 wide for the stiles and the upper rail. The bottom rail is going to be a hair wider. It's going to be 1 3/4 of an inch wide. That way it will hang down an extra 1/8 of an inch, and by hanging down that extra little bit, it'll cover up the raw plywood edges that you will see if you look underneath the bottom of the case, but you won't notice if you're looking just straight on. I decided to go with 1 5/8 since a 1x6 is actually 5.5 inches wide, and by doing 1 5/8 I can fit 3 of those boards going across. Actually, I can do 2 1 5/8 and then another 1 3/4, and it will still leave me a little bit of scrap in case there's any unusable wood that I need to avoid. After I got everything ripped to the correct width, I took the boards over to the chop saw and cut them to length. The larger cabinets needed stiles that were 30 1/8 long and rails that are 21 inches long. The smaller cabinets need 24 1/8 inch stiles and 18-inch rails. This was really easy for me to figure out because I decided to try lap joints for these, and that means I can just determine the outer dimensions and run with them. No need to subtract the stiles width from the rails and risk making a mistake. A lap joint works by cutting away half the depth of 2 boards. That way when you glue them together, they are back to being the full width or depth again. So in this case, I'm using 1x lumber, which is really 3/4 of an inch thick. So I had to remove 3/8 of the board at each of its ends. Now, since I was making the bottom rail a bit wider, I had to be careful running the stiles that I only cut off the extra 1/8 of an inch on one end. So to reduce the chance of messing up, I did all the narrower 1 5/8 cuts first. That's why I have that sacrificial fence there to just butt up against. That's at 1 5/8. And then after I got them all done, I went back and I did just on one end of all the stiles 1 3/4. And I'm using a dado blade for this. You don't need to use a dado blade, but it definitely speeds it up because I only have to do like 3 passes. And a dado blade gives me a nice flat surface. Sometimes when you use a regular blade, it might leave like a little bit of a V mark, which might be good for gluing, but in my case I just wanted 2 flat surfaces to glue together. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, please do me a favor by subscribing. Right now, I'm just shy of 670 subscribers, and I'm trying to reach 1,000. This view does a nice job showing how the lap joint came together. It made assembly super easy. In the past, I would use pocket holes to make my face frames, and it takes much longer, and then there's always the risk of splitting the narrower boards. This was my first time trying lap joints for face frames, and I don't think I'm ever going to go back to pocket holes. Well, except for maybe special cases like if the side of a cabinet was going to be visible. You might not want like the end grain from a lap joint visible, but maybe you would. So if you haven't tried a lap joint for a face frame, I highly recommend it. You should give it a shot. I kind of thought the table saw setup might be tedious, but honestly it was pretty easy. And once I got everything dialed in, it took me like 20 minutes to cut all of these rails and stiles. Here you can see me using my air nailer, and I had to be really careful. I used the shortest brads I have, which are 5/8, and that's only 1/8 short of shooting through. So to make sure that didn't happen, I turned the power dial, I think that's what it's called, all the way down, and I didn't have any problems with these face frames, no issues. At the corners, I made sure to glue each board in order to have good coverage, and then confirmed with my square that I had a right angle. And that ended up being a bit overkill since they all lined up on their own. They tended to self-square since the joints are cut perfectly perpendicular anyways. And a good way to test if the rectangle or square that you made is square is to measure crisscross from corner to corner. If both measurements are the same, then it's square. After I got the face frames assembled, I needed to sand them before I could start painting. Now, ideally I would do this outside, even in the winter. I would usually wait for a day above freezing, but it just wasn't in the cards this week. I think the warmest day is supposed to be like a high of 15 degrees Fahrenheit, so I just had to bite the bullet and do this down in my shop in the basement. So after I got everything sanded, I had to figure out where I was going to actually paint these and have them dry. So I laid out some rosin paper on all the surfaces I have in my shop and just did all the painting on the one cart there. It's kind of in the middle of this cart here. That's where I'm going to do all the painting. And then I just kind of transfer the stuff around. I did end up putting like finishing nails and different things, like I had some like screws underneath these after I got the coats of paint on, just so they'd be off the paper, because it did want to stick to it. But it worked well. It kept all my surfaces, for the most part, paint free. You know, the stuff I care about, like my table saw, for sure. So to attach the face frame, I put down glue and then used pocket holes. I got those pocket holes drilled ahead of time before I assembled the case. That's where pocket holes really are still good. You know, I can't see doing a lap joint to attach the face frame. I guess you could do things like biscuits probably, or even face nail, but I didn't want to do that. I think pocket hole screws are really good in this case. So after I got it glued, I made sure it was on there square with an even overlap on all the sides, except for the top. The top is flush. The bottom will have an extra, let's see, the sides are 1/2 inch, the bottom is a 1/2 inch plus 1/8, so what, 5/8? Just to kind of cover up a little bit of that plywood casing when it's up on the wall. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll make sure to link the different tools and accessories I use in the description. I have about 5 other videos filmed at this point. I just need to edit them. I have one on how I make the shelves and a slew of videos on a lighting project I've been working on. I still haven't made the doors, but I do plan on making a video for that too. So thanks for watching, and good luck with all of your projects.